Obviously, I've got a slightly different take. Let me start with acknowledgement of the 4 American soldiers who've been lost. Six now. 6 American soldiers who've been lost, and the expectation that more will be lost. Let me also indicate that the demise of the Iranian leadership, I shed no tears for. Let's also be clear. I've said before, I've said now, there was no imminent threat to the United States of America by the Iranians. There was a threat to Israel. If we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory. We have seen the goals for this operation change now, I believe, 4 or 5 times. A week ago, it was about the Iranian nuclear capacity. A few days later, it was about taking out the ballistic missiles. It was then, in the president's own words, about regime change. Excuse me. Somebody claimed to have invented cell phones, I could turn them off. It was then about regime change, and now we hear it's about sinking the Iranian fleet. A question I asked is, when the President of the United States says to the Iranian people, rise up, this is your chance to take your country back, what happens if 100,000 Iranian citizens go onto the streets of Tehran and the IRGC forces, which are brutal, murder 5,000, murder 10,000, murder 20,000? Does the United States of America have an obligation there, since the President called them into the streets? This is still a war of choice that has been acknowledged by others, was dictated by Israel's goals and timelines. Israel is a great ally of America. I stand firmly with Israel. But I believe at the end of the day, when we are talking about putting American soldiers in harm's way, when we have American casualties and expectations of more, there needs to be the proof of an imminent threat to American interest. I still don't think that standard has been met. I think the President needs to come before the Congress, and for that matter, the American people, and decide amongst these 4 or 5 goals that have been laid out, what is the real goal? What is the objective? What is our exit plan? What obligation do we have now to the Iranian people if they do rise up based upon his call for them to go to the streets? And what is the imminent threat to the United States' interest that causes conflict?
Senator?
So I will clearly be voting with, I think, the bipartisan efforts that will take place in the Senate and I hope in the House to bring forward the War Powers Act.
Senator Warner, has the administration explained what the end game is here? How did they describe that to you? And what about the impact, the cost on Americans that's had so far? American assets, how much damage has the U.S. sustained from this war?
Listen, I think it is, I'll grant the administration this, it is way too early, 48 hours in, for cost estimates. Clearly, when you combine the efforts of the amount of munitions that we have spent over the last year attacking the Houthis, the amount of munitions that's been spent on other ventures. I think the 7 different military conflicts the president has put America into, our munitions are low. That's public knowledge. It will require additional funding. Funding where we have other domestic needs as well. In terms of the end game, I've heard 5 different rationales for what our goal, like 5, nuclear, the missiles, regime change, sinking of the Iranian fleet, at least 4 different goals in the last 8 or 9 days. I'm not sure which of those goals, if met, means that we're at an end game.
Senator, can I ask you, looking back over the last year, all the times that Congress had a chance to weigh in, or the administration was acting, whether it's in Venezuela or other places, or even in Iran previously, looking back, do you feel like Congress has missed its moment here? Is it basically irrelevant when it comes to declaring war, or is there something that can be done?
So far, Congress has been totally irrelevant, because we've not used our power. And again, I'll go back to the irony of, if you look back in early January, when the Iranian people bravely, against this, again, awful regime, were in the streets on record numbers, you could have actually made a case then that taking a strike towards the IRGC might have pushed the people forward and the regime to crumble. We couldn't do that for 2 reasons. Because the military capability that we would normally have in the region, the aircraft carrier Ford, was off the coast of Venezuela on another one of the president's military follies. And the ability for us to bring our European allies to bear helping us, who have diplomatic presence still with Iran, they were appropriately distracted because of the president's folly about Greenland. So I might not have agreed with an action then, but at least there was a logic to that moment in time. Now it appears that the timeline is not being driven by American imminent security concerns, but by others.
Senator.
A while ago, the State Department urged Americans living in 14 countries in the Middle East to leave as soon as possible.
Pardon me, say that again.
A little while ago, the State Department urged Americans living in 14 Middle Eastern countries to leave as soon as possible so whatever commercial transportation is still available. Obviously, thousands of flights have already been canceled, more than any time since the start of the pandemic. What does that say to you about the planning for this?
Well, it says that, if this was being driven by imminent security threats from Iran against America, we would have, I think, had better planning. And the irony of this, as well, many times, as we know, when an American president takes an action, it's often in reaction to, and then he or she has to act because of the moment in time. This has been something that has been building up for months on end as this armada has come together. And the idea that there is then not a constitutional responsibility for the president to come to Congress after he's built up this fleet, and now, not my words, his words, launched a war against Iran. Anyone who argues otherwise hasn't read the Constitution.
Senator, have warned Americans abroad